Public Service Commission rules. Department with his recommendation whether the officer should, in respect of the alleged offense, continue or cease to report for duty, or his services should be terminated under Rule 65(3)(b). 3. After a report is made under Rule 65(3), the Commission shall in the public interest, or to protect the repute of the public service, direct the officer, in writing whether suspension by the Commission, a. to report or cease to report for duty, until further notice from the Commission, and an officer so directed, shall continue to perform or cease to perform the functions of his office accordingly, and where an officer is directed to cease to perform the functions of his office, he shall be paid full salary, which shall be discontinued in accordance with Rules 88(1). And 3. In the event of his conviction of the offense charged under Rule 65(2), on the same date of his conviction, or termination of appointment, b. give the officer notice, in writing for the termination of his employment, such period of notice to be 2 weeks where the officer has been employed for less than 1 year, and 1 month where the officer has been employed for 1 year or more. 4. An officer whose services have been terminated under Rule 65(3)(b) will be eligible for severance allowance as provided under the Termination of Employment and Severance Pay Act, subsidiary Public Service Commission rules. Penalty and conviction by the court. 5. Where pursuant to any prosecution under Rule 65(2), an officer is convicted of any charge, as soon as possible by the court, after the decision of the court is notified, the Commission shall decide as appropriate whether a penalty should be awarded under Rule 79(1) and notify him accordingly, or in the case where the officer is acquitted of the charge, the Commission shall remove all restrictions if any imposed on him as a consequence of the charge as which were laid against him. Departmental disciplinary proceedings. 66. 1. Where under Rule 65(1) the police has advised against disciplinary any criminal charge before the court, the permanent secretary or head of department, as he thinks fit, may in respect of the alleged misconduct or indiscipline by the officer take the following steps. A. On the basis of all the evidence in support of the alleged misconduct or indiscipline seek, as may be necessary, the advice of the Solicitor General in regard to the precise wording of the departmental charge. B. Serve in writing on the officer the charge together with such particulars as will leave the officer under no misapprehension as to the precise nature of the allegations on which the charge is are based, and at the same time request the officer's immediate acknowledgement of receipt of the charge, and also his reply in writing to the charge, as denying or admitting same within 7 days of acknowledgement of receipt. Subsidiary Public Service Commission rules. Penalty to be imposed by Commission. 2. If the officer admits his misconduct and/or indiscipline as charged, the permanent secretary or head of department shall forthwith submit to the secretary all the relevant documents pertaining to the matter with his recommendation on the particular penalty which may be imposed by the Commission as set out in Rule 79(1). On receipt of such documents the Commission may, subject to Rule 87, decide on and impose the penalty without further inquiry. 3. On the other hand, if the officer fails to reply to the charge, or in his reply to the charge, fails to admit or deny the charge, the permanent secretary or head of department shall appoint a disciplinary tribunal in accordance with Rule 66(4) as early as possible to investigate and hear the officer's explanations in his defense. Disciplinary tribunal of a. One officer who shall be the chairman, or b. an uneven number of persons not being less than 3, one of whom shall be appointed the chairman. 5. Where an officer is selected under Rule 66(4), he shall be of a grade not lower than that of senior personnel officer or of a grade equivalent in status, but in no case he be of a grade lower than the officer charged. 6. Where the defaulter is a permanent secretary or a head of department, all references to the permanent secretary or head of department, as provided in these rules, to effect the institution of any criminal charge or disciplinary proceedings, shall be construed to refer, in the case of a permanent secretary, to the minister in charge of the ministry. Subsidiary Public Service Commission rules. Where the permanent secretary is employed, or in the case of the head of department, to the head of the Presidential Secretariat. Duties of disciplinary tribunal. 67. 1. It shall be the duty of every person or officer appointed to the disciplinary tribunal to hear the evidence, find the facts, collect all documentary evidence, and with the chairman of the tribunal, make a report to the permanent secretary or head of department within a month or such longer period as the permanent secretary or head of department may permit, and such officer of the tribunal may not be permitted any leave, other than sick leave or maternity leave, until the report is delivered to the permanent secretary or head of department. Notification of charge. 2. Where a member of the disciplinary tribunal is appointed under Rule 66(4)(b is granted sick leave for an indeterminate period, the disciplinary tribunal may continue to hear the case and make a report in the absence of the member, but such tribunal shall not be constituted of less than 3 members. The tribunal officer or chairman of the disciplinary tribunal shall, within 3 days of his appointment, request from the officer an explanation concerning the report or allegation, and specifying the time not exceeding 7 days from the date of the receipt of such notice, within which he may, in writing, give such explanation to the tribunal officer or the chairman of the tribunal. 2. The tribunal officer or the chairman of the disciplinary tribunal shall with all possible dispatch notify in writing those persons who have direct knowledge of the alleged indiscipline or misconduct to submit written statements within 7 days of the date of such notice. Laws of Guyana. Subsidiary Public Service Commission Rules. Refusal to make statement. 69. Any officer who has direct knowledge of the alleged indiscipline or misconduct committed by another officer and refuses to make a written statement when requested to do so shall be guilty of improper conduct. 1. The officer charged shall be allowed to state the names and addresses of any witnesses to the relevant facts whom he may desire to give evidence at the hearing of the case. 2. Any such witness who is a public officer shall be ordered to attend at the hearing of the case, as well as any other witness shall be given due notice that his attendance is desired, and of the time and place of the hearing. Procedure of Disciplinary Tribunal. 71. 1. The following procedure shall apply to the hearing disciplinary by a disciplinary tribunal of a charge of alleged misconduct or indiscipline. A. The officer shall be summoned to appear to the hearing and shall be given full opportunity to defend himself. B. The case against the officer may be presented by an officer of the ministry or department to which the officer is assigned, but such officer shall be the holder of an office in a grade not lower than that of the officer charged. C. At the hearing before a disciplinary tribunal, the officer may conduct his defense either in person or may be represented by an officer of his choice who is a member of the public service, or by his staff association, or if permitted by the disciplinary tribunal in its discretion, by attorney at law, and if the officer is represented by such member, or by his staff association, or by an attorney at law, the officer or his representative may cross-examine the witness called in support of the charge, but where the hearing is before a disciplinary tribunal constituted of one officer, the officer charged shall not be represented by an attorney at law. D. A true record of the proceedings and evidence at the hearing of the case, except the report of the disciplinary tribunal, shall be made, and a copy of such record shall be given to the officer if he desires to make application for a review by the Commission as provided under Rule 18a. 2. Nothing in this rule shall be construed so as to deprive the officer from at any time making a submission that the facts disclosed in the evidence do not support the charge. Adjournment of hearing. 72. The hearing may be adjourned from time to time as may appear necessary for due hearing of the charge. Failure to attend hearing. If the officer charged fails to attend the hearing of the charge without good reason, the hearing may be proceeded with and conducted in his absence, but if in the opinion of the disciplinary tribunal a good reason is given to the disciplinary tribunal by or on behalf of the officer which excuses his absence at the hearing shall be postponed or adjourned as the case may be. Subsidiary Public Service Commission Rules. Main purpose of tribunal. 74. 1. During the hearing by the disciplinary tribunal, its main purpose is to elicit all such information, including documentary proof, as in the circumstances may be considered necessary, without being bound by the rules of evidence in civil or criminal proceedings, provided always that if any witness objects to answering any question, or to producing any document on the ground that it will tend to incriminate him, or any other lawful ground, he shall not be required to answer such question, or to produce such document, nor shall he be liable to any penalties for refusing to do so. Report of tribunal to be forwarded to Secretary. 2. No documentary shall be used against the officer unless he has previously been supplied with a copy thereof or given access thereto. 75. 1. The report of the disciplinary tribunal, including all relevant documents collected and proposed under Rule 67(1), shall within 7 days of its receipt be forwarded to the Secretary by permanent secretary or head of department with his recommendations. 2. The disciplinary tribunal shall not disclose the contents of its report made under Rule 67(1) to the officer charged, or to any officer not authorized to receive such report. 3. An officer who contravenes Rule 75(2) shall be guilty of improper conduct. Tribunal report to be examined by Commission. 76. The Commission shall examine the report, and if it agrees with the findings that the charges have been proven, proceed to award penalty under examined by Rule 79(1), or in the case where in the findings of the disciplinary tribunal the charge have not been proven, confirm the acquittal of the officer through his permanent secretary or head of department. Subsidiary Commission may call for fresh proceedings. 77. The Commission, after reviewing the proceedings and report of the disciplinary tribunal, may call for fresh proceedings by a newly appointed tribunal to give effect to all or any of the relevant rules of disciplinary proceedings. Proceedings to be held in private. 78. The proceedings before a disciplinary tribunal shall be held in private. Penalties. 79. 1. The following are the penalties that may be imposed by the Commission by disciplinary proceedings brought against an officer in respect of misconduct, indiscipline, or unsatisfactory service. A. Dismissal. B. Reduction in rank, which is the removal to another grade with an immediate reduction in salary. C. Reduction of remuneration, which is an immediate adjustment of remuneration to a lower point on the scale of remuneration attached to the particular office. D. Reprimand or warning. No disciplinary action while criminal proceedings pending. 80. 1. Where criminal proceedings have been instituted in any court against an officer, the permanent secretary, or the head of department or the commission, shall not institute disciplinary proceedings against the officer upon any grounds arising out of the criminal charge until after the court has determined the matter, and the time allowed for an appeal from the decision of the court has expired. But, where an officer, on conviction, has appealed, the commission may commence proceedings after the withdrawal or determination of the appeal. Subsidiary Public Service Commission Rules. Disciplinary tribunal may adjourn and report to commission. 81. Where during the course of the hearing of a charge and before the hearing is completed by the disciplinary tribunal, it appears to the disciplinary tribunal that matters disclosed during the hearing may require a report to be made to the permanent secretary or head of department for transmission to the commission, the disciplinary tribunal may adjourn the hearing for a period not exceeding 14 days, and shall forthwith report such matters for transmission to the commission. Disciplinary tribunal to report where evidence insufficient. 82. 1. Where a disciplinary tribunal, on hearing the evidence, finds that the evidence is insufficient to support the charge or charges, the disciplinary tribunal shall make a report of the proceedings as required by Rule 68(3), without calling on the officer to answer the charge or charges. 2. If on receipt of the report and record of the proceedings under Rule 82(1) the Commission is of the opinion that the report should be amplified in any respect or that further inquiry is desirable, it may refer the case back to the disciplinary tribunal for further inquiry or report accordingly. Disciplinary tribunal to report other misconduct disclosed at hearing. 83. Where a disciplinary tribunal, on hearing the evidence, is of the opinion that such evidence discloses other misconduct or indiscipline, the disciplinary tribunal shall report the matter to the permanent secretary or head of department for transmission to the commission, and if the commission thinks fit to proceed against the officer on such misconduct or indiscipline, it shall cause the officer to be informed in writing of any further charge, and the procedure prescribed in these rules in respect of the original charge shall apply in respect of such charge. Commission to consider report of tribunal and inform officer of findings. 84. 1. On consideration of the report of findings of fact by a disciplinary tribunal under Rule 75(1), the Commission, if so satisfied, may a. exonerate the officer, b. dismiss the officer, or c. impose any of the penalties specified in Rule 79(1). 2. The Commission shall, as soon as possible after hearing of the charge, inform the officer in writing of its findings and the penalty, if any, imposed on him. Commission may remove officer in public interest. 85. Where on a consideration of the report of the findings of the fact of a disciplinary tribunal as constituted under Rule 66(4), the Commission is of the opinion that the officer does not deserve to be dismissed by reason of the charge as alleged, but that the proceedings disclose other grounds for removing him from the public service in the public interest, the Commission may make an order under Rule 57(3) for the removal of such officer. Disciplinary action after acquittal of criminal charge. 86. An officer acquitted of a criminal charge in any court shall not be dismissed or otherwise punished in respect of any charge of which he has been acquitted, but nothing in this rule shall prevent him being dismissed or otherwise punished in respect of any other charge arising out of his conduct in the matter, unless such other charge is substantially the same as that in respect of which he has been acquitted. Conviction on criminal charge. 87%. If an officer is convicted in any court of a criminal charge, the Commission may consider the relevant proceedings on such charge, and if it is of opinion that the officer ought to be dismissed or subjected to some lesser punishment in respect of the offense of which he has been convicted, the Commission may thereupon dismiss or otherwise punish the officer without the institution of any disciplinary proceedings under these rules. Subsidiary Public Service Commission Rules. Non-payment of remuneration. 88. 1. An officer convicted of a criminal charge and sentenced to imprisonment without the option of a fine, or convicted of a criminal charge involving a. dishonesty, b. fraud, or c. moral turpitude, shall not receive any pay or allowance after the date of conviction pending consideration of the punishment to be imposed by the Commission. 2. The Commission may direct that an officer convicted of a charge described in Rule 88(1) shall be dismissed or shall cease to perform the duties of his office forthwith, where he has appealed only against the sentence imposed by the court. 3. Notwithstanding that an officer convicted of a charge described in Rule 88(1) has appealed against the conviction, such officer shall not, pending the determination of the appeal, receive any pay or allowance after the date of conviction. Definition of misconduct. 89. Misconduct, improper conduct or indiscipline includes a. contravention of the public service rules, departmental rules, regulations or circulars made for and applicable to the public service of Guyana, and any amendments thereto. b. contravention of lawful instructions. Public Service Commission rules, whether given orally or in writing by or on behalf of a minister, permanent secretary or head of department, or c. contravention of these rules. Chapter 8 Conduct, General Conduct. 90. Members and officers of the Commission shall conduct themselves at all times in such manner so that the Commission is not brought into disrepute. Duties of officer. 91. 1. An officer of the Commission shall discharge the usual duties of his office and any other related duties that the chairman or deputy chairman may, at any time, call upon him to discharge. 2. In the discharge of his duties, an officer shall be courteous and polite both to members and officers of the Commission, and to members of the public. 3. In all of his official writings, an officer shall use courteous terms and be careful to avoid any expression of personal feelings. Discourtesy. 92. No member or officer shall be discourteous or impolite to members and officers of the Commission or members of the public. Absence without leave. 93. 1. A member of the Commission shall not be absent from a meeting without leave or reasonable excuse. 2. A member of the Commission shall not leave the country without giving notice in writing to the chairman, or in case of emergency without giving notice of his leaving to the secretary, who shall forthwith in writing inform the subsidiary Public Service Commission rules. Not to participate in public meetings. Commission. 94. 1. No member or officer of the Commission shall actively participate in the proceedings of any public meeting called for the purpose of discussing or considering any action on the part of the government, or any decision on the part of the Commission. 2. No member or officer of the Commission, whether on duty or on leave, shall allow himself to be interviewed on questions of public policy, or on any matter relating to the work of the Commission, unless required to do so by official duties or the permission of the chairman is first obtained. Not to publish comments. 3. No member or officer of the Commission shall broadcast on the radio or television or publish in any other manner whatsoever any statement which can be regarded as being a personal comment on any national, political, or administrative matter unless permission of the chairman is first obtained. Any member of the Commission against whom bankruptcy proceedings have been, or who becomes insolvent, or who has been declared a bankrupt, shall within 7 days thereof resign from the Commission. 96. No member or officer of the Commission shall accept any gift or reward from any member of the public for service rendered, or to be rendered in the course of his official duties. Laws of Guyana, Public Service Commission rules. 98. Any breach of rules of this chapter shall be dealt with by the Commission as an act of misconduct. Schedule. R32. Form I. Oath or affirmation of office of the chairman and members. I. The chairman and members. I. Affection or will without fear, and affirm that I will without fear, favor, affection, or ill will, well and truly perform my duties in the office of chairman, member of the Public Service Commission on the exercise of the powers vested in the Public Service Commission under the Constitution, and that I will not directly or indirectly reveal any information to any unauthorized person or persons otherwise than in the course of duty. So help me God. Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana Subsidiary Public Service Commission, or affirmation of the Secretary to the Commission. I, Constitutory to the Commission, that I will faithfully, do swear, solemnly declare, execute the responsibilities and truly perform the duties of the office of Secretary of the Public Service Commission to the best of my skill and ability, and will not directly or indirectly reveal any information to any unauthorized person or persons otherwise than in the course of duty. So help me God. R34. Form Third Oath or affirmation of members of staff of the Commission. I. Firm third oath or affirmation of members of solemnly declare and affirm that I will faithfully execute the responsibilities and truly perform the duties assigned to me in the office as a member of staff of the Public Service Commission to the best of my skill and ability, and will not directly or indirectly reveal any unauthorized person or persons otherwise than in the course of duty. So help me God. Subsidiary Judicial Service Commission rules. R2 2010. Rule. Part I. Preliminary. 1. Short title. 2. Interpretation. 3. Application. Part 2. Appointments. 4. Tenure of office. 5. Appointment on absence pending relinquishment of post. Part 3. Conduct of members of the judicial service. 6. Conduct of officers generally. 7. Standard of behavior. 8. Substance abuse. 9. Hours of duty. 10. Absence from work during duty hours. 11. Performance appraisal report. 12. Forbidden conduct by officers. 13. Use of government vehicle. 14. Officers and the media. 15. Disclosure of confidential documents. 16. Access to personal records. 17. Representation from officers. 18. Engagement in political. Rule. 18. Work stoppage, withdrawal from work. 19. Strikes by officers. 20. Officers to be properly attired. 21. Officer to conduct themselves with decorum. 22. Senior officers responsible for acts of junior officers. 23. Sexual harassment forbidden. Part 4. Leave of absence. 24. Officers entitled to leave as of right. 25. Authority for the grant of leave. 26. Application for leave and leave roster. 27. Deferment of leave. 28. Compulsory leave. 29. Extension of leave. 30. Leave not to entail extra staff. 31. Leave on urgent private affairs. 32. Retirement leave. 33. Vacation leave entitlement. 34. Minimum service for vacation. 35. Sick leave entitlement. 36. Sick leave in excess of entitlement to be treated as vacation leave. 37. Extended sick leave. 38. Officers frequently absent on sick leave may appear before a medical board. 39. Submission to medical examination. 40. Sick leave during vacation leave. 41. Maternity leave. 42. Maternity leave entitlement, 43. Special leave, 44. Compassionate leave, rule, Part 5. Training and career development, 45. Training policy for the judicial service, 46. Authority for the grant of study leave, 47%. Minimum period of service for study leave, 48. Non-approval of study leave, 49%. Study leave on full pay, 50%. Training agreement, 51%. Fulfillment of bond prior to further study leave, 52. Extension of study leave, 53. Study leave without pay, 54. Part-time study leave up to 2 days per week, 55. Study leave for more than 2 days per week, 56. Annual report from institution of learning, 57. Obligations while on training, 58. Officers to submit copies of final reports, etc. 60. Training awards, 61. Penalty for termination, 62. Non-refundable expenses for self-initiated training. Part 6. Salaries, allowance and financial benefits, 63. Salaries for public officers. Part 7. Pensions, gratuities and other retirement benefits, 64. Retirement on medical grounds. Rule, 65. Doubt regarding computation of officers' retiring benefits, 66. Statutory declaration as to officers' service. Part 8. Discipline of public officers, 67. Authority to discipline officers, 68. Conditions for disciplinary action, 69. Dismissal for misconduct, subordination or gross inefficiency, 70%. Inefficiency and minor misconduct, procedures to be allowed, 71. Proceedings in serious misconduct cases, 72. Standard of proof, commission not bound by rules of evidence, 74. Commission to proceed with hearing in absence of officers, 75. Record of disciplinary proceeding to be prepared, 76. Officer to be informed of right of appeal, 77. Effective appeal on operation of penalty, 78%. Retirement in the public interest, 79. Suspension, 80. Disciplinary proceedings against an officer who has been criminally charged, 81. Disciplinary proceedings during criminal investigations or pending criminal proceedings, 82. Disciplinary proceedings arising out of acquittal of criminal proceedings, 83. Dismissal upon return of guilty verdict in criminal charge. Judicial Service Commission rules. Rule, Part 9. Miscellaneous. Correspondence between departments, 84. Official seals or stamps, 85. Franking stamp, 86. Circulars. Judicial Service Commission rules, made under the Constitution of Guyana. Rules made by the Judicial Service Commission in exercise of the powers conferred upon it by the Constitution of Guyana. Part 9. Preliminary. Short title. 1. These rules may be cited as the Judicial Service Commission rules. Interpretation. 2. 1. In these rules, unless the context otherwise requires, Commission means the Judicial Service Commission. Constitution means the Constitution of Guyana. Secretary means the Secretary of the Commission. Judicial Service means the service constituted by the subsidiary Judicial Service Commission rules. Person appointed commission by the Judicial Service. Member in relation to judicial service means a person employed in the judicial service, including a person employed under contract and a person on probation. Officer means a member of the judicial service. 3. 1. Subject to Rule 2 and the Constitution, these rules shall apply to all the members of the judicial service. 2. These rules shall not apply to members of the Judicial Service Commission who hold judicial appointment. Part 2. Appointments. Tenure of office. 4. 1. Subject to the Constitution and to Sub-Rule 2, all officers shall hold office for an indeterminate period until they reach the appointed age of retirement or demit office for any reason. 2. An officer who is appointed under a contract for a specified period shall cease to be a member at the expiration of the period specified in the contract, unless his/her contract is renewed or extended. Appointment on absence pending relinquishment of post. 5. Whenever an officer is on leave of absence pending relinquishment of his office, a. another person may be appointed by the Commission to that office and b. that person shall, for the purpose of any function of that office, b. Judicial Service Commission rules, deemed to be the sole holder of that office. Part 3. Conduct of members of the judicial service. Conduct of officers generally. 6. Subject to the Constitution, all officers appointed by the Commission shall conduct themselves in such a way as not to a. place themselves in positions in which they have or could have a conflict of interest, b. compromise the fair exercise of their official functions and duties, c. use their office for private gain, d. demean their office or position, e. allow their integrity to be called into question, nor f. endanger or diminish respect for, or confidence in, the integrity of the judicial service. Standard of behavior. 7. All officers shall therefore, a. demonstrate the highest level of professional conduct and personal integrity in the performance of their duties and in serving the public. b. treat everyone, including public, Judicial Service Commission rules, officers, clients and members of the general public with courtesy, respect, fairness and impartiality. c. display a positive attitude and be proactive in the exercise of their duties, seek to understand and to satisfy the real needs of members of the public. d. in the exercise of their official duties, not confer any special benefit and/or give preferential treatment to anyone on the basis of any special relationship, and e. render service in a timely, efficiently, and effective manner. Substance abuse. 8. 1. The use of alcohol, controlled drugs, intoxicants, narcotics, or any other illegal substance is prohibited at the workplace. 2. Arriving at work under the influence of any of the substances set out in Rule 8.1, or using any such substance whilst on duty, is prohibited. Hours of duty. 9. 1. The hours of attendance at work for the various categories of officers shall be determined by the Commission, and the following applied in respect of hours of duty. A. All officers shall be required to work a minimum of 39½ hours per week, but the Commission may require officers to work in excess of those hours. Judicial Service Commission rules. Whenever the public interest so requires. B. Additional hours worked shall be compensated for by overtime with the approval of the Ministry of Finance, or by appropriate time off in lieu of overtime. Absence from work during duty hours. 10. 1. No officer may absent himself from duty during working hours without the permission of the Commission or such other officers as may be deputed for this purpose by the Commission. Performance Appraisal Report. 11. Every officer shall be appraised on a semi-annual basis, and an appraisal report shall be submitted to the Commission. 12. 1. Subject to the Constitution, an officer is forbidden to a. Engage in any private work for payment or gain which conflicts with his official functions. B. Use information and/or any material gained from his official position for private gain. C. Exploit the status and privilege of his position for private gain. D. Solicit and/or accept payment and/or gifts for the performance or neglect of his official duties. E. Conduct private business during working hours and/or on. Judicial Service Commission rules. Government property. Use of government vehicle. 13. Officers are prohibited from using government vehicles for private purposes. Officers and the media. 14. 1. Officers are forbidden to be editors of newspapers or to take part in the management of newspapers directly or indirectly. They may not contribute to any media in Guyana or elsewhere on questions which may be regarded as party politics, though they may contribute articles upon subjects of general interest, not inconsistent with their official duties functions. 2. An officer, whether on duty or on leave, shall not allow himself to be interviewed on matters affecting the national security of Guyana. 3. Statements to the media involving public policy shall not be made by officers without prior clearance from the Commission. Disclosure of confidential documents. 15. Subject to the Constitution or any act, an officer shall not, without the approval of the Commission, make public or communicate to the media, or cause to be made public or so communicate to the media or to unauthorized individuals, any documents, papers, or information which may come into his possession in his official capacity, or make private copies of any such documents or papers. Access to personal records. 16. Officers shall have access to records personally relating to themselves with the prior permission of the Commission, in the presence of officers at the office of the Commission. Representation from officers to. 17. 1. Officers who may wish to make a representation regarding matters affecting their conditions. Judicial Service Commission rules. Members of Commission of Service should do so personally to the Commission. Upon receipt of the representation, the Commission shall a. Respond within 7 days after date of receipt, where the matter can be dealt with internally, or b. Forward such representation to the appropriate authority within 7 days, if the matter cannot be dealt with by the Commission. 2. The Commission may state in a separate memorandum its own views on the representation made and make any recommendation as to the merit of the representations. 3. When the officer has not received a reply within 14 working days, he shall forward a copy of his representation directly to the Chairman of the Commission for consideration by the Commission. Engagement in political activities. 18. Officers are expressly forbidden to a. Run for office as a candidate in any national or municipal election. B. Participate actively on behalf of any party or candidate in any national or municipal election, or c. Accept appointment or election, whether paid or unpaid, as an officer of a political party. Work stoppage. Withdrawal. 19. Disputes in the judicial service, which may involve or give rise to work stoppage or withdrawal from work, shall be determined in accordance with any law or subsidiary Judicial Service Commission rules from work enactment, which makes provision for the determination of such disputes. Strikes by officers. 21. Without prejudice to the laws relating to essential services, if a grievance leads to a strike, salaries and wages of officers who go on strike shall not be paid for any day or portion of a day during which they are on strike. 2. Without prejudice to the generality of Subrule 1 above. If an officer merely reports for work on any day of a strike but does not work for the day, he shall not receive pay in respect of that day. B. If an officer works for only a part of a day of a strike, he shall not be paid for that period of the day during which his services were withheld. 3. Any officer who engages in a strike not arising out of or not resulting from an industrial dispute with the employer, renders himself liable to disciplinary action, including dismissal. 4. At the commencement of a strike, the Commission shall inform all officers on leave of the existence of the strike, and request them to report for duty, as is deemed expedient. Officers who fail to report to work shall, in the absence of satisfactory explanation, be deemed to be in support of the strike, and shall not be eligible for pay from the date of the commencement of the strike, until such time as they report for duty and commence work, or until the strike is concluded, whichever occurs first. This rule applies to officers on any type of leave except Judicial Service Commission rules: A. Sick leave, B. Maternity leave, C. Leave on urgent private affairs, D. Special leave, E. Study leave, F. Leave outside Guyana, and G. Duty leave. Officers to be properly attired. 21. Officers shall be appropriately attired for work in a manner which demonstrates professionalism, decency, and a respect for colleagues and members of the general public. The Commission shall be responsible for the enforcement of the dress code. Officers to conduct themselves with decorum. 22. 1. Officers shall conduct themselves with decorum while at work, so as not to disturb others and to maintain an atmosphere of efficiency and purposefulness at the workplace. In particular, officers shall not engage in loud conversations, sing or play radios above a barely audible level at the workplace. They shall not eat or drink in areas to which the public has access. 2. In no circumstances shall items, images which offend good taste or morals be displayed in an office in the judicial service. Senior officers responsible for acts of junior officers. 23. A senior officer authorized to issue instructions to a junior officer and to compel his obedience shall prima facie be responsible for any act or omission on the part of the junior officer during the course of the junior officer's employment. The senior officer shall be liable for appropriate disciplinary action for any dereliction of duty. Judicial Service Commission rules. On the part of the junior officer working under his control or supervision, unless it can be shown that such act or omission arose through no neglect or fault on the part of the senior officer, and that all proper and adequate steps were taken to prevent the occurrence. Sexual harassment forbidden. 24. Sexual harassment at the workplace is forbidden. Officers who engage in sexual harassment shall be liable to disciplinary action, including dismissal. Part 4. Leave of absence. Officers entitled to leave as of right. 25. Subject to the exigencies of the judicial service, and to these rules, officers shall be entitled to leave, as set out in this part, as of right. Authority for the grant of leave. 26. 1. Subject to any act governing the leave of any officer, the authority for leave to officers is vested in the Commission and the Ministry of the Public Service respectively. 2. When considering application for vacation leave made by an officer, the Commission shall be guided by the principle that an officer should avail himself of vacation leave annually, and that accumulation of leave by an officer is to be a last resort. Application for leave and leave roster. 27. 1. Subject to the Constitution and/or any written law, officers wishing to apply for vacation leave shall do so at least 1 month before the date on which they intend to proceed on such leave. 2. It shall be the responsibility of the Commission to ensure that a leave roster is prepared at the beginning of each calendar year. Subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. 3. Applications should, as far as possible, be in conformity with the approved leave roster. 4. Where an officer applies for vacation leave but does not give at least 1 month's notice, such application shall be considered only where it is in conformity with the roster, or where the head of department is satisfied that the leave is required, on the grounds of urgent private affairs. 28. 1. The granting of vacation leave to an officer may be deferred by the Commission if it is in the interest of the judicial service to do so. 2. Any leave granted under these rules may be withdrawn if it is desirable that an officer return to duty before the expiration of leave granted. Further accumulation of leave shall, however, be subject to the limits prescribed in these rules. 3. Mandatory leave for new entrants to the judicial service shall be granted after 1 calendar year of service. Compulsory leave. 29. When an officer is about to accumulate his maximum leave entitlement, the Commission shall direct the officer to take leave, and failure to do so shall result in forfeiture thereof. Extension of leave. 30. An officer on leave seeking an extension of such leave shall, in the absence of exceptional circumstances, apply in sufficient time to allow a reply to be received before the expiration of the original period of leave granted. Leave not to entail extra staff. 31. The Commission is expected to make every effort to arrange for performance of an officer's duties while that officer is on leave for 14 consecutive days without extra cost to the judicial service. Judicial Service Commission rules. Leave on urgent private affairs. 32. 1. Officers applying for leave on the grounds of urgent private affairs must satisfy the Commission that the leave is unavoidable. This may be done confidentially if necessary. 2. Such leave, if approved, shall be deducted from the officer's leave entitlement. 34. Vacation leave shall be granted on full salary at the rate according to the relevant Public Service Ministry circular. 35. Officers shall not be granted vacation leave until they have served for 12 consecutive months from the date of appointment, except on the grounds of urgent private affairs. Sick leave entitlement. 36. 1. the Commission may grant sick leave to officers up to 16 days with full pay in any one calendar year. 2. Sick leave whose duration exceeds one day on any occasion shall not be granted without the submission of a medical certificate. 3. No more than 6 days paid sick leave without the submission of a medical certificate shall be allowed in any one calendar year. Sick leave in excess of entitlement to be treated as 37. 1. An officer who has exhausted his sick leave entitlement in any 1 year and requires further sick leave for a period of 10 days or less shall be required to. Subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. Vacation leave. Utilize vacation leave. 2. If the officer has exhausted all vacation leave, the leave shall be treated as leave without pay. 38. 1. Should the protracted illness of the officer necessitate his continuous absence beyond his normal sick leave eligibility, application accompanied by the relevant medical evidence shall be made to the Commission, which may grant extended sick leave up to a maximum of 180 days on full pay. 2. If the illness of the officer exceeds 180 days, the question on his fitness for further service shall be taken up with the Chief Medical Officer, Ministry of Health. On substantial evidence from a medical board that full recovery with return to duty is probable, the officer may be granted extension of sick leave up to a further 180 days on half pay. 3. Sick leave applied for under Sub-Rule 1 above shall be granted only on receipt of a prognosis by the Chief Medical Officer of the officer's eventual recovery and return to duty. 4. If the illness of the officer exceeds 360 days, the officer shall be retired from the judicial service on medical grounds. Officers frequently absent on sick leave may appear before a medical board. 39. Where an officer has been frequently absent on sick leave, the Commission may at any time request the Chief Medical Officer to advise on the nature of the officer's illness, or whether the officer should appear before a medical board to consider his fitness to continue in the judicial service. Submission to medical examination. 40. An officer who is required to undergo a medical examination shall submit himself to be examined by a medical board at such time and place as directed. Subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. Sick leave during vacation leave. 41. If an officer falls ill while on vacation leave, and he produces satisfactory medical evidence to his head of department, he shall be credited with vacation leave, equivalent to the number of days not utilized as vacation leave due to illness. 42. 1. All female officers are entitled to the grant of maternity leave. 2. All applications for maternity leave shall be a. Submitted at least 10 weeks prior to the officer's expected date of delivery, and b. accompanied by the relevant NIS forms. 3. An officer who fails to observe the requirement of this rule, and who applies for maternity leave after the date of delivery, shall be subject to disciplinary action. 4. An officer may take vacation leave which is due to her at the expiration of her maternity leave. 5. Maternity leave shall not be considered as sick leave, and sick leave shall not be granted as a substitute for maternity leave. 6. Sick leave shall be granted to run consecutive with maternity leave on the basis of a medical certificate, justifying sick leave, maternity leave entitlement. 43. Subject to any written law, an officer is entitled to a total of 13 weeks maternity leave, which shall be on full pay. Maternity leave shall be granted as follows. A. 6 weeks before expected date of. Judicial Service Commission rules, confinement on full pay. B. 6 weeks after the expected date of confinement on full pay. C. The 6 weeks before and the 6 weeks after the date of delivery shall be mandatory. Special leave. 44. 1. Special leave on full salary up to 1 month in any 1 year may be granted by the Commission for purposes as it may deem to be in the public interest, such as a. To enable officers who are selected by the proper authorities to represent Guyana in international sporting and cultural events, and b. To enable officers selected by associations approved by the Commission to attend training courses or conferences. 2. The Commission may grant special leave in other instances to enable officers to do such things which are considered to be in the public and national interests. 3. The Commission may grant time off to an officer who is appointed by an approved association to represent its interest. Compassionate leave. 45. The Commission shall grant compassionate leave to an officer up to 3 days on the death of an immediate family member, that is mother, father, spouse, children, brother or sister. Such leave shall not be charged against an officer's earned leave. Subsidiary. Training policy for the judicial service. Part 5. Training and career development. 46. The general direction of training policy for the judicial service, including the types and levels of training, is hereby vested in the Commission, subject to any act governing officers appointed otherwise than the Judicial Service Commission. Authority for the grant of study leave. 47. 1. The Commission may grant study leave to an officer where the training is considered to be of benefit to the judicial service. 2. Only officers confirmed in their appointment shall be considered for study leave. Minimum period of service for study leave. 48. Officers who have served the judicial service for a period of less than 2 years shall not normally be eligible for the grant of study leave. Non-approval of study leave. 49. Study leave shall not be approved to an officer to pursue training at a level equivalent to a qualification already possessed by the officer. Study leave on full pay. 50. An officer may be granted study leave on full pay where the course of training is A. Approved by the Commission, B. On a full-time basis, and C. For a duration of not more than 1 year. Training Agreement. 51. 1. It is mandatory that all officers who are granted study leave sign a bond with the Commission to serve on completion of their training. Laws of Guyana. 2. No bond shall be required in the case of A. Training for less than 6 calendar months durations. 3. The duration of service required by the bond shall vary depending on the duration of the course of training, in accordance with the following table. Duration of course. A. Less than 6 calendar months, nil. B. 6 calendar months to less than 1 year. C. 1 academic year to less than 2. 1 academic year to less than 2 academic year. 2 calendar years. D. 2 academic years to less than 3 academic years. 3 calendar years. E. 3 academic years to less than 4 academic years, to less than 4 calendar years. F. 4 academic years and over, length of study computed in calendar years. 4. The amount of an officer's bond shall be the estimated cost of his training, including the salary and subsidiary allowances payable during the period of training. The total amount of such expenditure shall be the extent of an officer's indebtedness, and the bond shall be secured. 5. If the training is terminated or suspended, or if the officer abandons the training for any reason whatsoever, the officer shall immediately resume duty and shall serve the judicial service for a period for which he enjoyed the benefit of the training. 6. If the officer fails to complete the requisite amount of years in the service of the judicial service, he shall pay to the Commission the sum of money, which is proportionate to the period of service for which he is in default. Fulfillment of bond prior to further study leave. 52. An officer, after successful completion of an approved course of study, shall be required to fulfill the requirements of his bond before study leave to pursue a further course of study can be approved. Extension of study leave. 53. Extension of study leave may be granted by the Commission if it is considered that such a grant is in the interest of the judicial service. Any application for extension of study leave must be accompanied by a. A letter of support from the officer's head of department and b. Evidence from the institution of learning of the need and reason for the extension. Study leave without pay. 54. 1. The Commission may grant leave without pay for the purpose of training to an officer who, on his own initiative, gains entry to or is registered as a student at an institution of learning and whose course of training is not subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. Based primarily on the needs of the judicial service. Such approval is subject to the exigencies of the judicial service. Part-time study leave up to 2 days per week. 2. Such leave shall not be considered as service for pension purposes. 55. Where an officer wishes to undertake an approved course of study at an approved tertiary institution that would require his absence from duty, the following shall apply. A. The officer shall forward his application to the Commission a letter of acceptance from the institution of learning. B. Study leave may be granted only in cases where I. The course of study would be of benefit to the judicial service and T. Evening or weekend classes are not available for the particular course. Study leave for more than 2 days. 56. Where an officer wishes to undertake a course of study at an approved tertiary institution that would require his absence from duty for 3 or more days per week, the officer shall be required to apply for full-time study leave. Annual report from institution of learning. 57. An annual report from the institution of learning shall be submitted by an officer on study leave to ensure that the officer is making good use of the leave granted to him is pursuing with success the course of training for which leave has been approved. Judicial Service Commission rules. Obligation while on training. 58. 1. Officers to whom study leave has been approved shall be required to a. Devote their whole time to the course of training, b. Sit for any examination and to write such papers or reports as may be required by the training authorities, and c. Resume duty or take up employment in the judicial service immediately after the completion of the course of training or at the expiry of any vacation or other leave which may have been granted to them. 2. Officers who complete their course of training prior to the expected completion date shall resume duty immediately, providing vacation or other leave has not been approved, failing which they will be subject to disciplinary action. Officer to submit copies of final reports, etc. 59. 1. Every officer shall, within a reasonable time after successful completion of his course of study, submit a copy of his final report, dissertation, thesis, etc., to the Secretary. The reasonable cost for said copies shall be borne by the Commission. 2. Every officer who has been the recipient of formal training may be requested to disseminate the knowledge and skills acquired. Suspension or termination of study leave. The Commission may suspend or terminate study leave if subsidiary Judicial Service Commission rules. A. Report of the officer's work or conduct on the course is unsatisfactory. B. The officer, without reasonable excuse, fails to pass a prescribed examination within the time fixed by the institution which he is attending. C. The officer engages in any activity which is detrimental to his progress in the course of study undertaken by him. D. The officer becomes unfit to complete his studies owing to illness. E. The officer fails to reply to correspondence or to keep the Commission informed of his whereabouts, and F. The officer is convicted on criminal charges in or outside Guyana. Training awards. 61. Offers of training awards from international or other organizations shall be dealt with by the Commission, and not on an ad hoc or individual basis. Penalty for termination. 62. An officer who prematurely terminates his course of training without prior approval from the Commission shall be required to pay the Commission a sum of money equal to the commitments he received prior to the premature termination, and any other amounts actually spent by the Commission in connection with his training. Non-refundable. 63. An officer who on his own applies for and is granted study leave to pursue a self-funded course of study. Judicial Service Commission rules. Expenses for self-initiated training shall not be considered post facto for a refund or grant for any portion of the expenditure incurred for the training. Part 6. Salaries, allowances, and financial benefits. Salaries for public officers. 64. The salaries attached of officers in the judicial service are and shall be as specified in orders which may from time to time be issued by the Minister of Finance. Part 7. Pensions, gratuities, and other retirement. Retirement on medical grounds. 65. Subject to any written law pertaining to any officer, if the Commission is satisfied with the medical advice given, it shall approve the retirement of the officer on medical grounds. Doubt regarding computation of officers' retiring benefits. 66. If there is any doubt on any point which is likely to affect the computation and award of an officer's retirement benefits, the Commission shall be consulted as early as possible, with a view to ensuring the correctness of the particulars raising the doubt, prior to submission. Statutory declaration as to officer's service. 67. In cases where it is not possible to locate the necessary records in relation to an officer's service, statutory declarations attesting to such service shall be submitted by 3 reliable and responsible persons who know the career history of the officer in the judicial service. The status of the declarant shall be stated, and he shall give the source of his knowledge of the facts contained in the declaration. Subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. Part 8. Discipline of public officers. Authority to discipline officers. 68. 1. Subject to the Constitution, the power to discipline officers is vested in the Commission. Conditions for disciplinary officers. 69. Subject to the Constitution, an officer who without reasonable excuse does an act which a. amounts to failure to perform in a proper manner any duty assigned to him, including discourtesy to members of the public. b. contravenes any of the provisions of these regulations, the Constitution, the Act, or any other regulations for the time being governing the conduct of officers, or c. is prejudicial to the efficient conduct of the judicial service, or tends to bring the judicial service into disrepute, is liable to disciplinary proceedings for that misconduct in accordance with the provisions of these rules. Dismissal for misconduct, insubordination, or gross inefficiency. C. 101, 71. Subject to the Constitution and the Pensions Act, an officer whose appointment has been confirmed may, after due process, be dismissed at any time on the grounds of misconduct, insubordination, or gross inefficiency at work. 2. An officer who is dismissed shall be entitled to payment of salary in lieu of all vacation leave accrued to him or her. Subsidiary. Judicial Service Commission rules. Inefficiency and minor misconduct procedures to be followed. 71. 1. Subject to the Constitution, if after oral warning of inefficiency or misconduct, an officer's work or conduct does not improve, he shall be warned in writing, and required to acknowledge receipt of such warning in writing. In aggravated cases, a copy of the correspondence shall be brought formally to the attention of the Commission. 2. Where disciplinary action is recommended for minor misconduct, the following procedures apply. A. The officer shall be notified in writing by the Judicial Service Commission of the grounds upon which it is recommended that he be disciplined, and he shall be given full opportunity of exculpating himself, and b. The Secretary to the Commission shall forward to the Commission a copy of the allegation and the officer's explanation, response together with the Secretary's report on the matter and such other reports as he considers relevant to the matter. 3. In any other case, if the Judicial Service Commission is satisfied that grounds for disciplinary action exist, it may institute disciplinary proceedings. 4. On the conclusion of the disciplinary proceedings referred to in Sub-Rule 3, if the Judicial Service Commission is of the opinion that a. the officer should be exonerated, it. proceedings in serious misconduct cases, Judicial Service Commission rules, shall exonerate the officer and dismiss the case. b. The allegation is proved, it shall impose such penalty upon the officer as it thinks fit, such as a caution, reprimand, or demotion. 72. 1. Subject to the Constitution, in cases of serious inefficiency or misconduct for which dismissal or retirement may be considered appropriate, the following procedures apply. A. The officer shall be notified in writing by the Judicial Service Commission of the allegations and be given full opportunity of exculpating himself. B. The Secretary of the Commission shall forward to the Commission a copy of the allegation and the officer's explanation, response together with the Secretary's own report on the matter and such other reports as may be considered relevant to the matter. C. Where the officer fails to respond or acts in such a manner as to obstruct the process, the Secretary of the Commission shall advise the Judicial Service Commission accordingly in his report. D. Upon receipt of the report, the Judicial Service Commission may cause further investigation to be made into the matter with the aid of the Secretary or such other person as the Commission may appoint. If the Judicial Service Commission is satisfied that sufficient investigation has already taken place, it may institute disciplinary proceedings. F. The officer may, if he wishes, request that he appears before and be heard by the Judicial Service Commission, with or without a union representative, an attorney at law, or some other person to assist him or her at the hearing, and such request shall be granted. G. If any witnesses are called to give evidence, the officer, attorney at law, or such other person shall be entitled to be present and to put questions to the witnesses. H. No documentary evidence shall be used against the officer unless he has previously been supplied with a copy thereof or given access thereto. 2. If, on the conclusion of the disciplinary proceedings, the Judicial Service Commission is of the opinion that a. The officer should be exonerated, it shall dismiss the case. b. The officer should be dismissed or retired, the committee shall dismiss or retire the officer, or c. Some lesser penalty other than the penalties referred to in paragraph B should be imposed on the officer. The Judicial Service Commission may impose such lesser penalty, such as a caution or reprimand. Standard of proof. 73. The standard of proof in disciplinary proceedings under these rules shall be on a balance of probability. Commission not bound by rules of evidence. 74. In disciplinary proceedings or other deliberations, the Judicial Service Commission shall inform itself in such manner as it thinks fit, having regard to the rules of evidence as far as possible, or to other legal technicalities in form. Commission to proceed with hearing in absence of officers. 75. 1. If without good reason, the officer against whom disciplinary proceedings have been instituted does not attend the hearing, the Judicial Service Commission may proceed and conclude the matter in his absence. 2. Where good reason is given the Judicial Service Commission on behalf of the officer as to why he is unable to attend the hearing, the Commission may postpone the matter as it deems appropriate. 3. For the purposes of this rule, the fact that an officer was in prison during the course of the disciplinary proceedings amounts to good reason. Record of disciplinary proceeding to be prepared. 76. In any disciplinary proceedings, a record of proceedings shall be made, which shall contain statements of evidence, the findings of the Judicial Service Commission, together with reasons for the findings and the penalty imposed. Laws of Guyana, Subsidiary Judicial Service Commission Rules. 77. The Judicial Service Commission shall as soon as possible inform the officer in writing of its findings, the penalty imposed on him or her, of his right to appeal the determination to the High Court, and of the time required for making such application. 80. 1. Where the Commission is informed of an alleged act of misconduct by an officer and has the reason to believe that the public interest or the reputation of the judicial service requires it, the Commission may suspend the officer on full pay, from duty by notice in writing until further notice. 2. The effective date of suspension is the date specified in the notice. 3. An officer who is suspended shall cease to report for duty immediately on receipt of the notice. 4. The Commission shall review the alleged act of misconduct resulting in the suspension and may institute disciplinary proceedings accordingly. 5. An officer who is suspended from duty shall make himself available to the Commission whenever required until the conclusion of the matter. Subsidiary Judicial Service Commission Rules. 6. Subject to Sub-Rule 3, where disciplinary proceedings are not instituted within 60 days of the date of suspension, the officer shall resume duty and the suspension shall be set aside, and the officer shall be treated for all intents and purposes as if the suspension had never occurred. Disciplinary proceedings against an officer who has been criminally charged. 81. 1. The Judicial Service Commission may institute disciplinary proceedings against an officer who has been criminally charged. 2. Disciplinary proceedings may be instituted under Sub-Rule 1, notwithstanding that the officer has appealed a conviction arising out of the criminal proceedings. Disciplinary proceedings during criminal investigations or pending criminal proceedings. 82. Disciplinary proceedings may be instituted by the Judicial Service Commission where an officer's conduct is the subject of a. An investigation by the police, or b. Criminal proceedings in any court. Disciplinary proceedings arising out of acquittal of criminal proceedings. 83. An officer who is acquitted of a criminal charge in any court is not precluded from having proceedings instituted against him or her under these rules in respect of an alleged act of misconduct implicit in of that criminal charge. Dismissal upon return of guilty verdict in criminal charge. 84. 1. Where an officer pleads guilty to a criminal charge or a criminal charge is proved against an officer, the Commission shall consider the court's finding and request the officer in writing to show cause why he should not be dismissed. 2. The Commission, after hearing the officer, Judicial Service Commission Rules, may either dismiss the officer or impose such penalty as it sees fit. Part 9. Miscellaneous. Official seals or stamps. 85. Official seals and stamps shall be kept secured and not be supplied to private persons. 86. Officers shall not make use of any stamp for franking letters, or frank letters, without the authority of the Secretary, and are required to keep such devices under lock and key, except when in actual use. 87. The content of circulars should be communicated to all members of staff and initialed by the officers of the department in which they are received.